Hey everyone! Kind of a good news, bad news for today. Good news is I'm back with another beast of an episode. Bad news is this weekend is Canadian Thanksgiving. With 3 days of episode planning taken from me, I'll have to skip out yet again on next week's episode. I don't know if you Europeans have a Thanksgiving or, Thanksgiving parallel, but it's a rather major holiday in North America besides Christmas. So it's not something I can simply, skip out on without getting disdain from my family. There are a few YouTubers who call themselves introverts, but the second you plunk them in front of a crowd, they're just on fire. Yeah, those aren't actual introverts, and it's an insult to introverts everywhere when they try to claim that ground. I like my 3-day weekends, and the introvert in me would like nothing more than to just stay home rather than visit family. I don't hate my family by any stretch, but I do love 3-day weekends. Anyway, ramble over, I'll need next week off as well. So last time, let's recap a little so I remember what I did. It was a Hinata-focused episode, where we saw her struggles being blind in a foreign country, that's right, and then Sakura mused at what it would be like to be Hokage before getting brutally shot down by Minato. I did make a mistake in the timeline, however. Hinata and Neji went to the Hokage's home on day 2, not day 1, as witnessed in Neji's episode. I was debating whether I wanted Hinata or Sasuke to be day 1 when I was initially planning the arc, so I didn't think through the conflict of Hinata's timeline. It won't make a significant impact on anything, only that I failed my own jumbled timeline for this time skip arc. It was a writing challenge that I thought would be interesting to do, but the challenging part of it was certainly unexpected. But I'm not stopping just because of one slip-up. We just have 3 episodes to go, might as well finish strong. I've said it already, and perhaps I'm a broken record now, but this might just be my longest episode yet. I've also said that I want my episodes to be shorter, but there's just so much in these episodes that I'm finding it challenging to keep them shorter. I believe I've said that I want these episodes to be between 40 and 50 minutes long. Something along those lines would be extremely sustainable. I might even be able to build a backlog so when I go on vacation, I can upload an episode. But here I am making direct-to-TV movies for all of you. And yes, I know none of you are complaining, but the point is not to take up all of my free time to do these episodes. When I transitioned from 2 20-minute episodes per week, I should have remained at 40 to 50 minutes naturally to maintain the same workload. But I keep going way far over and above that organic expectation. I guess this is just me admitting that I have no restraint, even for my own good. I'm actually really self-competitive. That's how I get better at everything I do in life. I don't compare myself to other people. I compare myself to what I did before. And it comes out in my YouTube channel. I'll see my previous episode that was an hour and 6 minutes or whatever, and I'll think to myself, I can do an hour and 10, even though I know as well that I want to do a 40 to 50 minute episode. That competition in me, I'm like, I can do bigger, I can do better. And then at the end of the next week, I'm like, it was too much. So I'm just the masochist, apparently. Anyway, let's jump into this episode because there's so many big things to get through. I don't want to spoil anything, but this is a big episode for so many reasons. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment as well as check out my information below to see what my various contributing artists are up to. On with the show. It was barely noon when Sasuke found himself sitting on the edge of a bridge in town, staring listlessly down the river. He carefully played with a kunai that was somewhat rusted and still blood-stained from years past. He was exhausted by Minato's involvement in what to do with his clan's estate. Though it made sense that Minato might want to do something else with that neighborhood, There was no interest from him in rebuilding the clan so much as there was in making sure all the artifacts of the Uchiha clan were safely interred elsewhere. Heaving a sigh, Sasuke wonders for how much longer Minato wants to hold these meetings to decide such small matters. Sasuke would do the paperwork if he had to, but the village had so many enemies now that, despite this peace that the world was finally at, they needed to deal with these other problems. Not to mention Minato acted strange at the best of times, and Sasuke was having to put up a deceptive front every time he was in the Hokage's presence. It was exhausting. He needed to somehow trick a Hokage into thinking nothing was amiss. Even for Sasuke, such a task was daunting, and he had no idea how he would conquer the issue or if he would get caught lying before that. He glanced to his right as Hinata, of all people, landed beside him and sat quietly alongside him. She tells him that Neji wasn't following her around since that morning for some reason, but she's not about to ask questions about it and took advantage to do whatever she wanted to do. However, since their meeting, which Hinata does not describe at all, she's been unable to find Naruto. He's known to stand atop the Kage heads, but in these moments that she's checked there, he was nowhere to be found. She wonders why he's so intent on his absolute solitude, that maybe, like Kiba, he isn't so acclimatized to people yet. Or maybe he saw something or experienced something so awful in his time away that it sort of turned off his sociability. Hinata really ponders what may have happened to make him this way. Not that he was the most bubbly, outgoing person to begin with. Few of the Triumphant 12 had been cagey about their time away, but Naruto was one of them, and ironically, so was Sasuke. She wondered aloud why they couldn't share their stories before realizing that she was calling Sasuke out in front of him and closed her mouth abruptly mid-sentence. "My clan is finished," Sasuke finally says after Hinata finished her random ranting. Of course, his response had nothing to do with what she was rambling about, but she knew he had to have had a lot on his mind as well. "As far as I can tell, there's only 3 members left, and 2 of them are missing Nin," Sasuke growled, hesitating in what he was saying, in part with sorrow, in part with anger, and maybe a little of deception. "Why did my family have to do this to themselves? Why couldn't they just... I can't tell if I should be grateful that the traitors in my family have been finished off, or furious that they allowed themselves to be led so astray. If I ever get my hands on Shisui Uchiha, I fear I'll die trying to kill him for what he's done to what was supposed to be our family. Why would he betray us in the first place? In my time away..." Sasuke stopped for a moment, almost policing his own words. "In my time away, I discovered very important details that I can't even share with our stupid Hokage. That one anchor of stability in my life is now as unbalanced as the question mark that it is. Hinata, these are details that could threaten the village's entire existence, and if I can't trust the person on top, who else can I trust? They've all been doing his bidding for the last 3.5 years. Maybe they're all complicit to the shady dealings here. It's all so suffocating." Sighing, Hinata nods, looking at his bloody kunai, and answers. "You have this little group of us that are tied together now. You can confide in any one of us, too. Lighten your own burden. You're not actually alone. But alone is all I've ever been. People bow acknowledgement to you when you pass by them on the street. They ignore me completely. I don't need the attention, but some recognition for being the only normal member of my clan or something. If I let these details be revealed to anyone, what will happen? You're not alone, Sasuke. That's what I'm telling you. We all care about you. You don't have to hide." Hinata pressed, her expression earnest. Hiding is all I'm good at these days. The more I try to reach out, the more I feel like people are just dragged down with me, Sasuke continued, his eyes narrowing, the tension palpable. Just like when I was first assigned with Neji, nothing I did helped to build him up. It was all for naught as we both failed. Neji's an idiot, Hinata answered, rolling her eyes at the thought of her cousin's general attitude. Besides which, you're one of the strongest people in our class. You're fighting for Neji's success. The one person whom you should hate more than anyone else in our class is proof of that. The hardest challenge, and you still took it on single-handedly. Let Naruto, Sakura, Ino, or myself help you. Help? Sasuke answered, looking pained. You don't know the darkness that's coming for this village. Maybe not, Hinata replied, determined. But I know what it's like to feel lost and alone. I've faced my own darkness. Her face hardens as her own past squishes down into an instant of suffering for her. You can trust me. I've trained specifically to combat the darkness. Together. Sasuke paused, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. I don't know if I can. It sucks that your family was stupid. Hinata suddenly flourishes, a fire lighting in her. If they were alive today, I'd tie them up and slap them silly for the very thoughts they dared to have. Unlike you, they didn't seem capable of thinking for themselves. They listened to their parents and their parents before them, all the way along until Madara was the one whispering in their ears. If only they had stopped for a second and realized that the first Hokage died in a duel against that man. If only they had stopped to think that maybe that fight didn't have to happen if Madara had any foresight into the future of the village. They hitched their wagon to a man with no future in mind. It makes me so sick that he was the other half of the inspiration for this village. Dumbstruck, Sasuke finally looked away from the river and at Hinata as she exploded in complaints about Madara Uchiha, the ultimate villain of Sasuke's lineage. He was amazed that a Hyuga, of all people, Hinata, could be so capable of sympathy for their rival clan. Squeezing one of her clenched fists, she threw it down to sound the end of her rant, and it slammed hard into the railing of the bridge they both sat on. Looking up at Sasuke, panting from her own heightened emotions, Hinata's anger diluted and turned soft. Sasuke stared at her, frozen in shock, at the single Tomo Sharingan from his donated eye. Bringing a hand up to brush the hair out of her face, she blocked the Sharingan for a moment, and when her hand passed, the eye had turned to normal again. What is it? She asked as Sasuke gazed in disbelief at her. Shaking his head, Sasuke decides against telling her what he just saw. The first time the Sharingan awakens, it stays activated until the user figures out how to deactivate it. It's like waking up one day with an extra limb. You don't just automatically know how to use it. Since it deactivated within seconds of activating, Sasuke decides that maybe he was seeing things. You can't just use anyone for your stupid experiments, Sasuke demanded of Kimimaro. It had been revealed to him that they were holding on to some leaf shinobi, and though he wasn't given permission to see them, he also didn't want them to be test subjects either. Incorrect, Kimimaro told him. We can use whoever we want, whenever we want, and from wherever we want. That's the advantage of being allied to no one. You're not getting it, Sasuke squeezed the bridge of his nose. By having me here, you're essentially signing up to a non-conflict with the Leaf. Free them, or I'm gone. Kimimaro measured Sasuke up for a while, silently and uncomfortably. No, he decided at last. No, they are good subjects for the experiments. Resilient, stubborn even. You're asking for a mutiny, Sasuke told him, unwilling to budge an inch on the matter himself. Even if you somehow freed them, we'd make sure to keep you hostage here, Kimimaro told him matter-of-factly. Wouldn't you rather nabbing any other ninja team than having the shame of some escaping under your nose, as well as a new and unruly prisoner? Sasuke asked him. At this point, Sasuke was serious. He would make a big stink about it if he had to, just to give the prisoners their freedom. That does seem like a needless headache, Kimimaro nods. Though we could just preemptively lock you up and be done with it. I'm sure Lord Orochimaru would be so pleased to hear how you handled one of his candidates, Sasuke taunted with a raised eyebrow. This is the only favor I will grant you, Sasuke Uchiha, Kimimaro answered at last. Should we get our hands on more Leaf Shinobi, I will ignore any plight you have to free them. Crisis averted. For now. You must understand that this is how important you are to Lord Orochimaru's plans, Kimimaro tells him honestly. Sasuke had only been with the Sound for a week when he had made this demand. All the Sound Ninja were rude, but generally speaking did not stand in Sasuke's way. Those prisoners were the first time anyone gave a hard stop to Sasuke's suggestions. For the most part, Kidomaru and Kimimaro worked with Sasuke's knowledge of the leaf to develop new jutsu. It was important to the Sound to continue either discovering more jutsu for their archives or developing new ones to help Lord Orochimaru when it came time for his return. However, none of them had such a keen mind as Lord Orochimaru himself, so it was troublesome to develop anything new. With Sasuke's inclusion to their ranks, they suddenly had a first-hand index for leaf techniques. Of course, Sasuke wasn't exactly willing to share, which led Kidomaru to suggest he help them twist currently existing jutsu into something new. One of the many tricks Kimimaro was capable of was one-handed seals, a trick even Lord Orochimaru was unable to do, and one that few in the world could pull off. It was through this technique that Kimimaro discovered certain jutsu could be performed simultaneously for their effects to combine. The first example he gave was combining fire with any kind of projectile to make it into a flaming projectile. Through enough research and experimentation, they were able to use hand seals to combine the two jutsu into one. Kidomaru, with his multiple arms, was also able to perform two jutsu at the same time, which is why he and Kimimaro had taken up this mantle. Just as Sasuke had been thinking through this explanation, Kimimaro points out that if his Sharingan can memorize jutsu, then Sasuke too should be able to combine jutsu at will, though with much more limited flexibility. It took some practice, but Sasuke soon learned that he was indeed able to fire off his stored jutsu simultaneously to a manually made jutsu. This exponentially increased the possibilities of his Sharingan, and he began seriously thinking about what abilities were worth storing. With just the one eye, he could only store 3 at a time. He currently had a great earthen boulder and a basic cloned genjutsu stored away. It was a challenge finding a jutsu that he could safely replicate for his chakra reserves that would also be uniquely beneficial to him, so he didn't try to copy very often. Not that they were permanent either, as he was able to forget jutsu just as easily as copy them. At least, that's how his brother explained it to him long ago. One jutsu that Kimimaro and Kidomaru had been brewing over in particular was the Impure Resurrection Jutsu. It was one of the S-rank jutsu Orochimaru had shared with them before his untimely demise, but it was so complex that they just couldn't wrap their heads around augmenting or twisting it for a different or tweaked purpose. Shrugging, Sasuke tells them that it's probably annoying to have to rob graves every time you want to use the jutsu, and this was all it took to spark the idea, the impetus in their heads to work on a remote version. Eventually, Kidomaru was sent away, for the Sound was made of few ninja and couldn't afford to have 2 of their number invested in their research department anymore. So it was only Sasuke and Kimimaro who spent countless days, and soon weeks, mulling over the process. But eventually, they finally yielded results. Following a scroll filled with the instructions of hand seals and elements needed, Sasuke at last performed the first successful attempt of the impure resurrection jutsu. And fizzle. "You sure you were targeting your brother?" Kimimaro asked, eyes squinting at the failure. "Well, I'll try my father instead so we can make sure this works," Sasuke suggested. "If that goes astray, then maybe I'm just doing it wrong." Performing the hand seals a second time, Sasuke thought to himself that the chakra demand for this technique was extremely high. If he was lucky, he'd be able to perform this jutsu once more. Upon completion, sure enough, a hand sprung from the ground as a darker toned version of his father clambered out from it. Made of the very earth he climbed out of. Ah! Fugaku sighed, looking blearily between Kimimaro and Sasuke, pausing on the young Uchiha. "Itachi, where are we?" Shivers shoot up Sasuke's arms and down his back as he looks at his father for the first time in 8 years. "Father, I am Sasuke, not Itachi," Sasuke explains to him carefully. "Itachi, what a prank," Fugaku smiles. "Little Sasuke has a few more years before he's so big and strong." "Father," Sasuke continued, swallowing back his emotions, "you're dead." Looking down at his body, Fugaku touches his own chest and nods. "Itachi, I think I'm dead." "Father," Sasuke said again, pausing to find his voice. "Who killed you?" "Who killed me?" Fugaku repeated, eyes narrowing with thought. They crept in the night. What they thought was a silent creeping was as loud as drums for me." Sasuke held back a growl as he relived the same night his father described. "It works. Dispel this," Kimimaro said, uninterested in the interaction. "Shut your mouth," Sasuke said to Kimimaro, keeping his eye on his father. Kimimaro regarded him lightly, but allowed the interaction to go on. Itachi, you must remember, you confronted him first," Fugaku nodded. "You did well to fight quietly. You didn't even wake your mom up." "Yes, Shisui," Sasuke said, agreeing with the memory so far. "But I can't quite remember. Did Shisui cut us both down?" No, he didn't cut either of us down," Fugaku revealed, which struck Sasuke hard for the first time. At the Chunin exams, Shisui told him that he killed his whole family. "He certainly tried, but chaos sparked outside and I... Fugaku trailed off for a few moments before continuing. "Itachi, I'm sure you've read the Uchiha tablet and are aware of the Mangekyo Sharingan." Yes, of course," Sasuke answered. He knew of it in name only. "Kill that whom you love the most, and unlock the greatest Uchiha power. Yes, everyone with a fully developed Sharingan knew this." Fugaku summarized anyway. "Well, when I was your age, there was an accident, and rather than watching my best friend and squad mate bleed out, I opted to kill him to save his suffering." "You had the Mangekyo as well?" Sasuke muttered, watching his father's Sharingan activate, but no Mangekyo followed. "I cannot conjure it in this form. I had enough power through it to easily lead the entire clan, if not with leadership, then with power if necessary," Fugaku admitted. "Though that was never my intention." "He seems very alert for an impure resurrection," Kimimaro noted. "He must have been very powerful in life." "He's recalling the most recent memories to him. It's probably easier," Sasuke noted. "Itachi, Shisui broke into the room and tried to finish the job quickly. And you were no longer behind him. Something had distracted you. Shisui tried to kill me while I was unarmed, but he underestimated me. Thwarting him was not a challenge," Fugaku revealed. Maybe he was very powerful," Sasuke corrected, second-guessing himself. Shisui easily outmaneuvered Shikaku Nara during the Chunin exams, as well as dealt with a number of Anbu on his own. Sasuke knew Shisui was no joke, but if his father in bed could easily fend him off, then what the heck killed his clan? It couldn't have been Shisui. And then... And then... nothing. A flash. Nothing more. Fugaku muttered, having clearly come to the moment of his own death. Father, Sasuke continued, what do you think of Sasuke? Sasuke? Fugaku repeated again. There was certainly some lag in some of his answers, and Sasuke wondered if that was because he was drawing on older memories. He's just a child, though I suppose at that age Kakashi Hatake was graduating from academy. Sasuke's heart sank at his father's comparison. Though he is keen, and his reflexes are as sharp as can be, Fugaku continued unexpectedly. If you don't watch yourself, Itachi, I suspect he'll surpass you by the time he's your age. Satisfied with that answer, Sasuke just stood smiling at his father, at long last, before Kimimaro got his attention and he finally dispelled the jutsu. Now more than ever, Sasuke wanted to return home. Surely Lord Fourth had more information on the massacre, if the only stories Sasuke's heard so far have conflicted with each other. So, why didn't it work on Itachi? Kimimaro repeats, having been using Sasuke's questioning time to write down further notes about the jutsu's efficacy. The jutsu only works on family that are dead. Sasuke shrugs, wondering briefly what the hang-up could be. So, he's either not related to you, Kimimaro suggested to a denial noise from Sasuke, or he's not dead. Not dead? Sasuke's heart stopped at the suggestion. The idea that, of all people, his brother still lived brought a sense of strange safety and warmth to Sasuke. Where could he be? Sasuke wondered, since it was impossible that Itachi was unrelated to him. Right? Well, the impure resurrection only works on the corpses of those that have died. Maybe the way in which Itachi died obliterated his body, Kimimaro suggests. Without a body for his spirit to return to, or take the form of, maybe he cannot be brought back. No. They definitely found his body, Sasuke refuses. Didn't they find Shisui's body too, though? Why would Itachi want to fake his own death? Sasuke shot back, irritated at the suggestion that his brother was not only alive, but had no interest in Sasuke at all. Why would Shisui lie about how your family died? Kimimaro casually shoots back at him. People lie for all sorts of reasons, even sometimes reasons that we cannot comprehend. Kimimaro had no family he had interest in resurrecting, even for the sake of the experiment, so they poured their knowledge into a scroll and shelved it with the intent to move on to a new jutsu to twist. In the interim, Sasuke eventually overhears Kidomaru talk about ensnaring more hapless leaf shinobi that wandered too close. When Sasuke tells the group that they are not to use leaf shinobi for any of their insidious plans, Kimimaro repeats to him that he simply does not wield so much authority as to stop them from targeting a whole population. Then I'll free them by force, if I have to, Sasuke tells them as the core sound officers all land between him and the prison cells. Sasuke's not stupid. He knows he can't defeat the full cast of officers. Sasuke, Kimimaro tells him calmly from behind, you are the master of your fate, and only your fate, Kimimaro tells him coldly. Stop playing hero. That's not what you're here for. Relaxing his shoulders in defeat, Sasuke turns away from the group and they laugh at him, calling what he just did a tantrum. Blinking, Sasuke thinks to himself whether he could even take one of them on. He didn't know where he got off threatening violence on an entire group in their own territory. This mock authority they had given him must have been going to his head. However, as much as they were definitely stronger than him, they also greatly underestimated his cunning. They were stretched too thin to go out on missions, so were only able to capture people who wandered too close to the fallen fortress city. The rest of their ranks were assigned to stand on rotating guard or perform key tasks within the compound, such as the jutsu research Sasuke and Kimimaro had been doing. An obvious flaw in their organization was refusing to recruit new members, which left gaping holes in their defenses every night. And so on that very night, Sasuke already had a plan to execute on, slipping out without even being spotted once. But he wasn't willing to run straight back to the Leaf. When they woke up and found him missing, surely Kimimaro would send his fastest to retrieve him, and where would Sasuke go if not back to the Leaf? So instead, he headed due east. After many nights of constant travel, unwilling to give up for fear that they actually caught on to his direction of flight, Sasuke found himself entering the land of Iron. He had certainly veered further off course than intended, but the sudden change in temperature was all it took for Sasuke to realize he had gone too far. However, it must have been summer in the land of Iron because, although cold, there was no snow on the ground. Sasuke wondered what it was about this nation that gave it its cold climate, since the Land of Lightning was actually situated further north and was not known for its cold. But the curiosity passed quickly as Sasuke beheld a great sight before him. Seemingly at the edge of the world stood a majestic pagoda. Its 6 levels towered into the sky, each adorned with intricate carvings that told stories of ancient deities and forgotten heroes. The dark and pale greens of the structure blend harmoniously with the surrounding landscape, whispering of nature's embrace. Pulled by his own legs, Sasuke approaches the great structure and wonders what its importance is, so far from civilization. Without a second's thought, he ascends its steps and quietly steps inside, but it is seemingly empty. There isn't a single speck of dust on the floor as Sasuke gingerly crosses it. He gets a strange sense that he isn't supposed to be inside, but he also has been camping in the wilderness for a while and wouldn't mind a night inside. It's completely silent here, eerily so for such a large building. Even when night falls and Sasuke finds a room tucked away down one of its many halls, he can't even hear the sound of the wind smacking into the building. As aggravating as it is, it's the silence that keeps him awake. Deciding to take another walk around the compound, Sasuke thinks he might be able to shake his feelings of unease if he gets used to his surroundings. As he walks, he wonders if it's a historical site, and maybe that's why it's completely abandoned. But as he makes his way to the compound's other side, he hears a faint sound, reminiscent of moaning. In such a large stone structure, he has no idea what could be producing that sound other than animals coming and going. Honing in on the source of the sound, Sasuke finds himself on a large open balcony that oversees the ocean. The moonlight casts this area from the darkness, and Sasuke looks around at various suits of samurai armor adorned on dummies and on the wall. As he approaches the middle armor stand, he notices a strange latch on the wall behind, and pulls it. This collapses the floor just behind him into a pitch-black pit, and the moaning's echoes become far clearer suddenly. Furrowing his brow with the discovery, Sasuke latches himself to the wall with chakra and carefully makes his way into its depths, bracing himself for what may be hiding in the darkness. Was this a hideout masquerading as a temple, or was it a temple that was made into a hideout? Either way, Sasuke would have never known had he not been unable to sleep and gone investigating. There are lamps down here in the basement, lighting the way for him. As he walks, he notices that the floor plan is an exact replica of the ground floor above. He passes by several rooms, above which he was once trying to sleep, but these all have barred doors that keep him out. Sasuke peers into several as he walks, but while they're all lit from within, they mostly seem vacant. That is until he reaches a room that has a man chained to the wall within. He slouches bare-chested with various scars running across the top of his head. This could be a prison, Sasuke wonders, or some sort of interrogation facility? He leans in closer and feels like he recognizes the man, but from where he's unsure. Shaking his head, Sasuke continues onward, telling himself that he'll break the man out if he doesn't come across any resistance down here. But he doesn't want to burden himself with the responsibility before exploring the rest of the space. If he broke that man out now and left him to his own devices, Sasuke thinks he would simply be killed upon being caught. Finally entering the main hall, after finding nothing of note but that one prisoner, Sasuke finds a second person. Why they're being held here, in a gigantic room, is anybody's guess. Just like the prisoner before, this one is also chained up by his wrists, leaving his body to slump in its exhaustion. Sprinting to the room's center to the man, Sasuke takes a quick look around before trying to get his attention. Picking up the man's chin to get a look at his face, Sasuke freezes. Battered, bruised, cut up and scarred, Akane Uchiha is a destroyed heap. Restrained and tortured for who knows how long, Sasuke quickly sets to freeing him. Akane mutters feebly. Sasuke, kill me. Nonsense, Sasuke answers him, freeing one hand and moving to the next. There's no one here. I can get you out of here in no time. Sasuke, Akane continues. I'm sorry. Releasing his other hand, Sasuke leans quickly to catch Akane and stop him from falling. Reaching forward and into Sasuke's pack, Akane pulls out a kunai and attempts to strike Sasuke with it. Quickly dodging away, Sasuke shouts, Why? Sasuke, Akane whispers as he raises the kunai for another attack. You need to leave. Shaking his head at Akane, Sasuke pulls out his own kunai. Akane, I'm trying to help you. Leaping at Sasuke, Akane meets him in taijutsu combat. He's clearly exhausted, and it's easy for Sasuke to deflect his attacks, but that doesn't stop him from trying. Sasuke, Akane repeats. Shisui told me about the Mangekyo. Again, in just a couple weeks, Sasuke has heard about the Mangekyo from two different sources. Sasuke, Akane continues. The Mangekyo destroyed our clan. What? Sasuke asks as they continue their clash. Every time their kunai meet, Akane continues talking to him. He can't tell if Akane's putting up a front for some invisible observers, or if he's actually trying to kill him. Either way, Sasuke would rather not hurt Akane, if at all possible. Sasuke, Akane echoed. Even now, Shisui lives in utter fear of Itachi's return. What? Sasuke answered, suddenly rolling away as a bald man stepped out of the shadows to strike at him. Where is my brother? Sasuke, kill me. Akane shouts again, as the bald man attaches his wrists to the restraints again. Be gone! Sasuke shouts at the bald man, performing the requisite hand seals for a fireball and activating his boulder jutsu just as he finishes the fireball. Launching from him, a great fiery boulder smashes into the bald man and erases him. Running once more to the now submissive Akane, Sasuke fumbles as he returns to unlocking the shackles. Sasuke, stop, Akane mutters, pleading. Stop, Sasuke. Why would you want to stay here? Sasuke asks him, ignoring his request. Sasuke, the Akatsuki and Shisui, they took my eyes from me, Akane admitted, ashamed even now. And then they shoved new ones into me, and then they tortured me until my Sharingan reawakened. What? Sasuke asked, stilled by the news. You regrew the Sharingan? No one ever taught us that, Akane whispers. I'm just a farm for them. End my suffering and prevent them from harvesting any more Sharingan. That bald man was Akatsuki? Sasuke asked to Akane, shaking his head. I I don't know. I was sold off to some other organization, Akane tells him before locking eyes with Sasuke and demanding, "Please, Sasuke, you need to kill me. Don't you think I've suffered enough? Never mind the shame of letting so many Sharingan get shared to who knows. I am ending your suffering. I'm freeing you," Sasuke tells him, stubbornly refusing the other outcome. A clattering around him announces the arrival of a dozen more bald men. Now there is no way for Sasuke to fight them all off while successfully carrying Akane to safety, one at a time. Sasuke leaves Akane for a moment and beckons the bald men for a challenge. Sprouting clones alongside his fireball, he turns them all into balls of fire that scatter around the room, combining 3 jutsu, attempting to run into the bald men. As the men dodge the fire, Sasuke quickly runs behind them and lands quick, lethal strikes on several. While some drop, more to come in and replace them, and Sasuke wonders who these people are. Not clones, as the corpses didn't vanish. Some draw weapons, but none of these are standard ninja tools. Though to a much lesser extent than Kakashi's, since he had to develop it himself, Sasuke forms concentrated lightning into his fist as he continues around the room to attempt quick takedowns. Soon, however, Sasuke's energy begins to noticeably wane, and the bald men seem to replace each other as he takes them down. For all he knows, there's an army waiting outside, so further resistance where it's hard to run is not a good idea. "Sasuke!" Akane shouts from his shackles, tears stream down his face. "Please, grow up and do as all ninja are trained. Kill me and protect any more of our cherished Sharingan from being stolen." Forming a tighter circle in an attempt to cut off Sasuke's escape routes, the bald men each brandish a single Sharingan, and Sasuke realizes just how many times Akane's been abused for their sacred power. Running to Akane's side, Sasuke whispers, "You did nothing wrong, Akane. I will see that your torture here does not go unpunished." Screaming to the high heavens, Sasuke redirects his kunai and thrusts it into a lethal point between Akane's ribs. His cousin releases a death rattle before falling limp. Sharingan twirling, Sasuke turns to his bald foes and screams at them again, conjuring a boulder to open a spot for him to escape through. As he runs, they all give chase, slamming into him and trying to grab at his limbs to stop him in his tracks. He throws shuriken attached to wire to wrap back around and smack into them, but does not spare a single moment to turn and engage them. Despite their clearly lacking ninja training, they're all keeping up with him as he sprints for the way up. Jumping towards the wall that led him down here, Sasuke twists just once and launches a quickly formed Great Dragon Fire Jutsu that's so great in size that it fills the entire hall and forces the men to pause. As he gets to the top of the balcony, Sasuke runs to the switch that opened the hole and gets it shut. Shockingly, from the moment the floor closes up, all the sounds from below cease. Still, this place is far too dangerous, and Sasuke needs to evacuate now. With a renewed fury, not just for Shisui, but now the Akatsuki as well, and a continued disdain for the sound, Sasuke has no idea where he needs to go to exact justice. He wonders if the bald men didn't pursue him beyond that point of the hole in the floor to maintain their cover, despite the fact that he might spill the beans on their hideout. Then again, maybe they called on an actual ninja to give Sasuke proper chase, which meant that yet again, he was on the run, and he didn't want to lead dangerous people like this back to Konoha. Exiting through the front door, Sasuke encounters a girl who's kneeling at the bottom of the steps. Her surprise to see him leaving the shrine is replaced by innocent anger that he's treading on ground that he shouldn't be. If only she knew the truth that lay in its depths. He apologizes quickly in an attempt to end the interaction, but she gets in his way. Sasuke could easily remove her, but something within creates inaction. She seems to only be slightly younger than Sasuke, and when her eyes meet with his one, she demands to know why he was intruding on the shrine. Her voice softens when she sees blood splatter on his outfit and realizes he must have recently gone through something fierce. "Were you hiding in there?" she asks. "Well, don't. It's a pilgrimage site, not meant for hiding." "Look, I don't have time for this," Sasuke tells her flatly, pushing her aside with one arm. She grabs his arm in answer and twists in just such a way that Sasuke has to twirl to keep the pain at bay. "Release me!" Sasuke demanded, almost pushed to forcing himself free. He didn't want to be known for any violence and allow rumor to lead his pursuers straight to him. "Then tell me your name," she asks nearly intolerably. "Sasuke, all right. Now let me go." Releasing him as agreed, she says, "My name's Fu. Nice to meet ya." "Look, Fu, I don't have time for small talk," Sasuke tells her, trying to move on. No, he doesn't." A second voice agrees, and Sasuke looks up to see Jirobo in his way. Hissing that he was actually found, Sasuke steps in front of Fu and tells Jirobo to hit the road. "Put up too much resistance and I've been allowed to break some legs," Jirobo told him with a smile. "I don't have time for this," Sasuke shouted at him, charging the sound shinobi. "Lightning Flash Jutsu!" A rapid bang of thunder echoed from Sasuke's clapping palms as a flash of lightning hit Jirobo square. Deafened and blinded momentarily by the attack, Jirobo attempts to erect an earthen wall jutsu, forgetting in his panic that Earth is weak to lightning. Forming the same basic lightning in his fist from before, Sasuke cleaves straight through the wall, and with a kunai in his other hand, still bloodied from a kane, Sasuke plunges it into Jirobo's gut. Still standing, Jirobo groans and grabs hold of Sasuke, but Sasuke is in no mood to hesitate and pulls the kunai from the man's gut before plunging it into his forearm that's holding him. As Jirobo recoils from the two lethal strikes, Sasuke heaves a great breath and releases Fire Spray Jutsu, which releases a fast-moving, short-range spray of fire at Jirobo. As the man collapses, overwhelmed from Sasuke's relentless assault, Sasuke falls on him just one more time with his kunai and finishes the job. Panting heavily, Sasuke can't help but relinquish his Sharingan as he turns back towards the girl. I gotta get out of here. He gasps at her and stumbles slightly. Not a single step more and half a dozen bald men suddenly pour from the temple. He reaches toward the girl, who has turned towards the men as he collapses in the grass. "Run," Sasuke mutters, unable to get back up. "Ah," the girl says loudly. "Piece of cake." After a few moments of lying in his exhaustion, Sasuke eventually feels himself get picked up and looks to see the girl helping him. Behind her, 6 men lay in a heap. Well, if only she had helped him earlier. "I'll take you to my place," she says to him. "I got a little cottage in the woods." She helped him recover, and even though upon waking he insisted on leaving, Fu told him that no one knew where her cottage was but the village leadership. They were currently in the land of waterfalls, and she often went to that shrine because while her cottage was just inside the waterfall border, the shrine was also just inside the land of Iron's borders, so it was an easy trip. "I also have a place in the village, but when the war rages as it currently is, I usually stay here," Fu tells him without much reservation. "Why is that the parameter to your hiding?" Sasuke asks her. Anyway, I saw you kill that man with such ease," she remarked, clumsily changing the subject. "And here I was looking for a training partner to help pass the time." "You too," Sasuke told her. "You took out those 6 men chasing me in no time." Strong and hidden away by her village, Sasuke wondered what was so important about her. "Well, I've had a good mentor," she tells him bashfully. "Look, I can stay here for a while, but you need to know that there are very, very dangerous people after me. Far more dangerous than those bald men you took out, Sasuke explains to her. As long as I'm here, you will be in danger. Shrugging at the warning, Fu casually says, "What's new?" Shrugging as well, and chuckling softly at her dismissal of the problem, Sasuke can't help but agree to stay here for at least a little while and hide. One day, Sasuke wakes up extra early to do some training before Fu wakes herself, only to discover her already outside meditating. In the limited time he had spent with her so far, Sasuke's come to realize that she's extremely capable. If he were to compare her to his own classmates, she would be well above them all, despite being nearly the same age. Her taijutsu is just as technical as his own, and he finds that their sparring can last for 20 minutes without a single successful blow exchanged. Sasuke asks her if she's at all invested in the purity of that pagoda at the ocean's edge, and she told him she only liked it because it was beautiful. Ultimately, it was up to the samurai to deal with any sneaky people hiding within. Where Sasuke used fire and lightning in the majority of his jutsu, Fu relied almost exclusively on water and earth style, providing an advantage and disadvantage for both of them. When Fu asks why he was covered in blood, Sasuke tells her that his cousin died in his hands, hiding the fact that it was also by his hands, so as to not push her away or provide her more fuel for needless questions. He does, though, confide that he's trying to elude more than a couple hunters at this point, wondering just how many more enemies he'll make before he reaches Konoha again. She's also quite adept at genjutsu, using a style that confuses the senses rather than creating strict visual illusions. She was able to create fake sounds and scents to throw Sasuke astray rather easily. Eventually, she reveals that the Land of Waterfalls was planning to capture one of the roaming-tailed beasts and use her to be its host. She showed the most talent and promise when she was a child, so they began grooming her specifically for that task. But the war just kept on going, and since it is in fact still happening, it's really detracted from their ability to freely disperse their ninja and find which beast might be the easiest to seal. Through their sparring, Fu discovers that Sasuke is needlessly violent, and often allows the sparring to get way out of hand. She tells him that he needs to find a better way to vent his pent-up aggression, because if he's not careful during sparring, one or both of them could get hurt. As much as Sasuke does try to rein in his anger and anguish, it continues to bare its teeth in their sessions. Luckily for them both, Fu shows restraint and refrains from punishing him too harshly for the outbursts. "I saw your shouting gun, you know. I know what you are," she told him casually after a particular sparring session nearly led to bloodshed. "It's no secret that the Uchiha have less control over their emotions." "I can control my emotions just fine," Sasuke insisted, nursing a bruised elbow after Fu had roughly thrown him to the ground for trying to continue after she asked him to stop. "Clearly," she said, shaking her head at him with a slight smirk. "I'm just stressed out," he claimed, wondering as well why he was trying to defend himself. She didn't even seem to care either way what his excuse was. Fu seemed perfectly capable of shutting him down every time he got out of hand, so why would she even be concerned? Sasuke also became plagued every night by dreams of Akane and his father and Itachi, and if he could even believe it, began fearing what the truth of the massacre was. From the little he understood of the impure resurrection jutsu, the more powerful the ninja in life, the more clear their mind was in its resurrection. Just how powerful was his father to be so coherent for the questions? Or was it just that the memories were closest in his mind? And if his dad was that powerful to ward off Shisui's attack, then how did he die? These thoughts haunted his every action, and even led to enough distraction for Fu to land clean blows during their training. "Wow!" an outside voice complimented. "Now that was a good strike." Springing to his feet, Sasuke turned with Fu to greet their visitors. Two men stood opposite them, men that Sasuke had never seen before. I got the leaf, Shinobi, the blonde-haired man said with a smile. You get the girl. Clearly aggressors. They didn't have any interest in talking at all. It left Sasuke and Fu with just one choice. The blonde man had 2 satchels on either side of his waist that he tucked his hands into. The other man was very strange looking, with 2 Venus flytrap extensions that enveloped his head and some of his body. He was also split vertically down the middle, with a black side and a white side. If Sasuke had to guess, he may have been one of Lord Orochimaru's test subjects based on how creepy looking he was. You got this, Fu told Sasuke as they separated to take their attackers on individually. As Fu makes the first offensive move, she realizes quickly that her ninjutsu do nothing against the man, absorbing into him. Switching to genjutsu is also quite pointless, as her style fails to trick him. Meanwhile, though he is slow in taijutsu, none of her attacks leave any lasting marks on him. When she cuts him with a kunai, the wound reseals itself on the fly to her amazement. Conversely, the man doesn't use any ninjutsu or genjutsu either, resorting strictly to the physical in an attempt to apprehend her. Lulled into a false sense of security, Fu is caught unawares once, and as the man closes his hand around her forearm, he squeezes nearly hard enough to break it until she cuts his arm off completely. Left on her arm is a large, shaped bruise, and she looks up to watch his arm regrow nearly instantly. Scoffing at his defensive potential, Fu decides to just play cat and mouse until Sasuke can deal with his foe. Meanwhile, Sasuke wove lightning into both hands and swatted the blonde man's little clay machinations out of the air as he closed distance. Tisking at Sasuke, reducing his primary weapons to duds in the air, the man stopped backpedaling to suddenly surge forward, catching Sasuke off balance. The cloaks these men wore were familiar to Sasuke, reminiscent of the Akatsuki that attacked during the Chunin exams. He couldn't remember their exact design since he had spent all of his time tracking down Shisui, but if he had to guess, these were the very same. Last time they crossed paths, the Akatsuki's goal seemed ambiguous at best. Of all the major things in the village at the time, there were 3 Kage and 3 Jinchuriki. By process of elimination, Sasuke knew that Fu wasn't a Kage, and he certainly wasn't either. Maybe the mystery of Fu was that she was a Jinchuriki. She hinted that her village had set her aside as the eventual host, but maybe she was twisting the truth to protect herself. Ducking under and around the blonde man's quick jabs, Sasuke quickly swapped lightning from his right hand into fire and grabbed a hold of one of the packs on the man's hip. Cursing at Sasuke, the blonde man watched hopelessly as half of his fuel burned to ash. "You're an Uchiha," the man growled. "Figures." Without realizing that he had, Sasuke activated his Sharingan. But instead of forcing reproach, Sasuke leaned into the excitement that activated it. Fu always wanted him to find a different way to vent his rage. "You tortured my cousin," Sasuke told him, weaving several seals for a quick feint fireball. Weaving seals of his own, the blonde man attempted a counterattack. "Mole Dome Jutsu!" Though Sasuke's feint weaved through the cracks of the rising barrier, he was not quite prepared for a sudden balloon of clay to fully encompass him. Hearing the buffeted sound of the man's voice on the other side of the hardening clay, Sasuke blinked and felt a surge of chakra drain from him. He had attempted to capture the jutsu, but failure only meant one thing. This was a Kekkei Genkai. "My heart is an explosion!" The man laughed as the dome ignited. Turning his back on the explosion, the man approached his comrade with a shrug that his opponent was just a little bit too easy. "Zetsu, how have you not dealt with her yet?" "Relax, Deidara," the white half of Zetsu told him, followed by the black half saying, "You couldn't even finish the job." Sighing, Deidara turned to see a slug slowly creeping away from the explosion's epicenter. A fireball launched from his right, and Deidara quickly sidestepped it, laughing at the futile attempt as a kunai zipped from behind him and cut into his head. Yelping from the surprise attack, Deidara fell to the ground and held a hand to his face to feel for the damage. Lifting his hand away revealed that Sasuke had successfully destroyed his right eye. "That's just a piece of justice," Sasuke told him ominously. "Get up!" "The gloves come off!" Deidara shouted at Sasuke, leaping to his feet. "Such a cowardly strike, figures from an Uchiha." "I'm a ninja," Sasuke told him, still with a darker tone. "You're assassin." "Shadow Clone Jutsu!" Deidara shouted, and from all the shadows around Sasuke leapt a dozen copies of himself. "Neutralize this!" All of them began spewing out tiny clay spiders that left sticky webs in their paths. Sasuke's Sharingan finished twirling, and he did what he could to stave them off, but they quickly overwhelmed him. "Try your lightning on these, damn it!" Deidara shouted, wasting no time in igniting them before Sasuke could mount a defense. "That's more like it," the black Zetsu complimented, as the white Zetsu added, "Now please help us with the girl." Falling through the smoke of the explosion, Sasuke landed on all fours, coughing for breath. If only he had been a little more capable with his lightning to run it through his whole body. A moment later, though, and his shadow clone dispersed, unable to stomach any more damage. Hearing the familiar pop of a shadow clone dispersing, Deidara rolled his eye and turned back yet again. "Whoa! I didn't even see that trick," White Zetsu said in surprise, with Black Zetsu adding, "Kid's more talented than we thought." Leaping from the roof of the cottage, Sasuke quickly dove into a melee range with Deidara, preventing him time to pull out more of his explosive clay. The eye that Sasuke removed opened up a blind spot for him to aim for the other pack of clay. If he could take that out of the equation, he felt as if their playing field would balance out. With the Shadow Clone memorized by his Sharingan eye, Sasuke didn't have to spare a second to conjure them out. As each blow that would have struck him came around, he would summon out another clone to either absorb the blow or help him turn it around on Deidara. But this came at cost. The Shadow Clone was far more challenging on his chakra, and they could only form from the shadows. And he didn't have control over Shadow style, so the cost was substantial. Deidara was specifically dodging around the area so as to keep to the most well-lit areas as much as possible. But the constant hammering of Sasuke's clones from different angles kept Deidara on his toes constantly. As clever as Sasuke was being, however, Deidara was hatching his own schemes. Throughout their fight, Deidara seemed to be going in a deliberate circle, but there was no visual tell as to why. All at once, clay suddenly sprung to life around Sasuke and wrapped around him, encasing him in a cocoon that sealed his movements. All while they were fighting, Deidara had been leaving clay in the grass at their feet. He had been growing tired from their prolonged fight and complex maneuvers, but he didn't think something like this would trip him up. "Now, be a good little boy and don't move, or I'll blow you to kingdom come," Deidara told him, muttering as he walked back to Fu and Zetsu. "I'll blow you up either way." Just like Sasuke, Fu had been exhausted into a submission. With Deidara's help, they held her down so that Zetsu could perform a strange jutsu on her. He smacked his palm into her chest at the end of the jutsu, but after a swell of anticipation, nothing happened. "She's not even a Jinchuriki!" Black Zetsu hissed, with the white half adding, "That's too bad." "Those sound idiots led us astray," Deidara cursed. "Where the hell is the beast that's supposed to be inside her then?" "I suppose we'll have to visit the sound again," White Zetsu suggested, with Black Zetsu adding, "Kill a few and send a message." "Lady Katsuyu," Sasuke whispered while the two Akatsuki men were arguing. The slug he had summoned had crawled into the woods to recover from the explosion she endured for him. Her eyes protruded from her body when he whispered her name, and she replied equally quietly, "Yes, Sasuke?" "Could you endure another hit like that?" he asked, his heart wrenching that all he was doing with Lady Tsunari's cherished summon was making it take hits for him. "Of course. I am but a small piece of my whole body, Katsuyu told him. If I can protect little Tsunade's student from harm, I shall do so. He laughed despite himself that Lady Katsuyu called Tsunade little, and wondered how old the slug was to call her such. But his crumbs of humor dissolved instantly as his attention returned to the Akatsuki men standing over Fu. Yahiko's rules, Deidara told Zetsu. I've obviously got the Uchiha. Arm transforming into a long vine, Zetsu reared back before plunging forward and thrusting it through Fu's chest. Wah! Fu groaned, clutching onto Zetsu's vine arm before he could pull it out. Fu! Sasuke shouted from his restraints. Lady Katsuyu could shield him from the explosion, but she couldn't free him from the giant cocoon. He was powerless to watch yet another person he'd come to care about die. It didn't matter how angry he became, or how much he could do in combat. He could do nothing to stop what was happening before him. Worry not, Uchiha, Deidara smiled, watching Fu slowly bleed out while the vine remained in her. I'll kill you after we finish her off. Finish the job this time. Sasuke fumed, etching every detail of Deidara and Zetsu's appearances into his mind. Or I'll find you, and I'll give you an unpleasant end. Both of you. Fu muttered, her grip weakening on the vine, and as she at last collapsed to the ground, her head lolled towards him, and she reached helplessly for him. Fu! Sasuke thundered, eye wide and unblinking as he stared at her now lifeless body, disbelief etched across his face. His heart feels as though it's been ripped from his chest, replaced by a seething core of rage and anguish. With every passing instant, sorrow morphs into a violent tempest, and a low growl reverberates into his throat, a primal sound that threatens to escape as the weight of loss bears down. His memories of all his lost family flood his mind, each one a dagger, twisting deeper into his grief. This anguish crystallizes into a dark resolve as Sasuke feels an insatiable need for vengeance, a fire surging within, consuming all remnants of calm. A whisper of fury escapes his lips, sharp and venomous, laced with promises of retribution, yet too quiet for his targets to hear. The world around him blurs as focus sharpens solely on the two Akatsuki members, a singular purpose and target for the storm brewing inside. This whirlwind of grief, fury, and chilling determination to reflect his pain back onto them courses through every nerve in his body. The silence of everyone he's lost transforms into a haunting echo of what was, fueling a desire that feels nothing short of monstrous. 1,000 moments in one pass, and an explosion that could be felt through the earth for miles erupts from Fu's cottage. As the smoke clears and debris has fallen back to the ground, Sasuke stands slightly charred, but for the most part uninjured, staring at the place where Fu had fallen. The explosion incinerated the cottage, obliterated the Lady Katsuyu he had summoned, and Fu's body too was gone. Breathing one great heave, Sasuke turned back west. So they're heading to the Sound, huh? Despite his resolute purpose, he took his time returning to the Sound. The pure, unadulterated fury that flooded his every vein needed time to simmer, or he would do something very stupid upon seeing someone that had wronged him. Zetsu, Deidara, Kidomaru, heck, all of the Sound for taking any Leaf Ninja hostage. Oh right, and it was Yahiko's orders to kill any witnesses. Sasuke would find him too. And he would kill him. He would kill them all. Outside Kimimaro, Sasuke didn't think too much of the other sound ninja. He killed Jirobo while tired. Maybe the remainder were just as weak. Shaking his head, Sasuke knew better than to underestimate his opponents. He would enter their compound the same way he had left and kill anyone who got in his way as silently as possible. He would free any prisoners he could, and he would destroy the scroll that he and Kimimaro had filled out, containing all the information about the impure resurrection. He would take from them everything they threatened to take from the leaf by taking them prisoner for their insidious experimentations. No longer did Sasuke have patience for their crazy cult expectations of Lord Orochimaru's return. In fact, in light of the darkness he had recently experienced, he couldn't believe he so willingly chose to work with the sound to do anything. He slipped into the compound in just the same way that he had left it, and yet again no one even turned a head. After Jirobo's untimely fate, he was likely an assumed enemy now, so he couldn't take it easy with anyone spotting him. It was dawn at the moment, but he was surprised that no one was patrolling the innards of the compound. It was completely unmanned outside. Without wasting a single step, he slipped into the single jail cell that the sound had, opening the door and welcoming anyone to attempt an escape. Of the prisoners within, there were not currently any Leaf Shinobi, and Sasuke did not have the time to handhold the rest of them to safety. He still had other objectives here. At the very least, the fleeing prisoners would likely create a distraction for him to continue undetected. The room he and Kimimaro had used to develop the remote resurrection jutsu was now filled wall to wall with scrolls. Either they had some sort of eureka moment, or they recruited a frequent jutsu developer. Shrugging, Sasuke knew just where they had left the scroll in question. Pulling it out, Sasuke immediately burned it to ash. Just as the scroll turned to dust, the candles in the room snuffed out and plunged Sasuke into darkness. He was found out. Figures they probably had some sort of seal on the room to alert them to unwanted trespassers. Turning toward the room's exit, Sasuke heard a strange, echoing laughter. Unperturbed by the fear tactic, Sasuke readies himself for a sprinting escape, but as he opens the door, he's dumbfounded by who's blocking him. Lord Orochimaru. In the flesh. Unlike the annoyed, grumpy Orochimaru that Sasuke had grown up knowing about, this man had a wicked, unsettling grin as his slick, greasy hair covered half his face. As if his creepy smile wasn't enough, his eyes pierced Sasuke with nothing but murderous intent. Some young Leaf Shinobi has decided to destroy my secrets, Lord Orochimaru asks him, and his tone suggests that he's never met Sasuke before. Blinking, Sasuke heaves a sigh before activating two of his stored abilities at once. Clone Jutsu combined with Boulder Jutsu throws elusive boulders in every direction, with just one real one hidden in the bunch. As the sound ninja surrounding him scatter, Sasuke spares no time and sprints towards the closest portion of wall to escape. Run, brat! Orochimaru calls after him. My hounds will be on your heels to the ends of the earth. Dosu Tayuya Kidomaru. Kill him. I'll send more to make sure you do not fail me. As Sasuke leaps to the edge of the wall, he turns and meets blows with Kidomaru as they both topple over the edge. Performing the hand seals for a fireball, Sasuke releases it again in tandem with his Boulder Jutsu, which creates a cascading flaming boulder that chases them to the ground below. Throwing out a loop of wire right before they land, Sasuke hooks Kidomaru's ankle, such that when they do hit the ground, he pulls hard and shakes Kidomaru from a solid landing. Leaping to safety, Sasuke watches as the flaming boulder lands down on and explodes upon Kidomaru's body. Not waiting even a second to see whether it succeeded, Sasuke continues his flight as Dosu and Tayuya fall down ahead of the exploded boulder to continue the chase. Standing alone in his front yard, ignoring the passing citizens, Minato slowly turns his head side to side with eyes closed. His detection spreads like a bright, swirling mist, weaving effortlessly between buildings as it whispers its way down the streets. It slips into windows and wraps around corners, softly enveloping each structure in a shroud. Each sector of the village surrenders its secrets silently, as if bowing to an inevitable tide. But just as gently as it reaches through the village, it also spreads like an igniting candle, filling a dark room with its soft glow in an instant. Minato is looking for someone who should not be where they are. Not trespassers or thieves or even rowdy children. These are not who he's concerned about. There are certain spaces of the village that should never ever be trod upon, and certain people that shouldn't be anywhere but one place at all times. Concerning him, Minato notices a few oddities and decides to flash through the village to explore them. He appears inside the jails for a moment, seeing Danzo shuffling in his cell. He raises an eyebrow at the blind old man before flashing away. Reappearing at the village gates, Minato wonders why Choza's been assigned as the sentry. The Akamichi head had far more important things to do. Turning again, Minato flashed once more. Appearing inside the Ninja Academy, he found Anko teaching alongside Iruka, and wondered why there were 2 teachers for the kids now. Making a mental note that these people needed to be properly reassigned, Minato appeared atop the Kage building and turned around a couple of times as his sensor abilities zeroed in on the last oddity. Settling on the direction of the last oddity, Minato grinds his teeth in frustration, before flinching from a sudden headache. Standing opposite him, atop the stone carving of his own head, Naruto watched his dad carefully. And that's the end of today's episode. Oh my gosh. I need to stop doing this to myself. I mean, I guess it's great for all of you, though. I mean, where to begin? A long time ago, Sasuke and Minato talked about the remote, impure resurrection jutsu. In that conversation, Sasuke told Minato that his dad was unable to provide useful information. But by the time that conversation had happened, Sasuke had already become suspicious of Minato, so he lied about what actually happened. I wanted to point that out because even longer than that ago, someone called me out on a plot hole, and I didn't want to blindside anyone with quote-unquote changed information. I think it's entirely within the purview of a ninja to deceive where it most benefits them, and this kind of thing was exactly that. But never mind that for a moment, let's talk about this episode's events. Sasuke met nearly every major criminal organization in his time away. Perhaps the only one he didn't meet was Ransai, Fusion Man. But are they connected or only correlated? Also, with Sasuke versus Deidara, in before someone calls me out for Sasuke quote-unquote knowing Deidara's technique before a single explosion went off. Sasuke's too smart to ignore anything his opponent throws at him, so I figured him smacking the little clay bugs out of the air would be a natural reaction. Add to that how he charged his hands with lightning so that he wouldn't have to later when he came within range of Deidara. I have a couple astute listeners that might have thought the fight was too convenient, but I tried to put my thought process into that of a smart ninja and nothing more. Also, more bald men! Finally! It's been a while! I have nothing else to say about them. Not yet. Also, poor Akane, of course. It sucks for Sasuke, it sucks for Akane, it sucks for... The Uchiha took a hit, let's just say that. And what about Fu? I didn't want her cameo to feel cheap, and I know a lot of people like her, but unfortunately she's less than a side character in canon, and I need to use purposeful characters like that to help the growth of the Triumphant 12. Sasuke needs to have meaningful fuel for wanting to hunt these people down, and now he has it. Oh, elephant in the room. Orochimaru. No, I didn't bring him back because he was a fan favorite of the rewrite. This was all intended from when I first started the rewrite. He's not just back to blow your minds, he still has a meaningful part to play in this rewrite. So look forward to more of Orochimaru and how his part will play in the coming conflicts. I guess more on the bald men. I finally got to use Crazy Star's bald man art, so yay! Anyway, time for the riddle to close out the episode. In a land unknown, I wander and roam, with a whispering voice far from home. It taunts and it guides, though truth it may twist, while allies appear like shadows in mist. But danger is near with eye that are keen, hunting my steps, lurking unseen. What am I, lost in this perilous quest, searching for answers, yet finding no rest? This riddle this time is difficult for me to make challenging since there's only 2 characters left, and it seems mighty obvious who's going to be kept for last. But I want to see if I can keep these riddles up for all my episodes as a form of teasing the next episode, regardless of its contents. Also, just one little touch that I just remembered. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing dialogue for Zetsu. I really enjoyed doing that. Anyway, let's call it a day there. The sky's the limit!